Production of Michigan Outdoors is made possible in part by the Stroh Brewery Company, a family-owned brewery, and its distributors throughout Michigan.
Alice cooks a squirrel with a hot frying pan, rolls them in flour, and browns them with a hot frying pan. Then puts them in a pressure cooker and cooks them for 30 minutes. And they are delicious.
Delicious, huh? You ever had squirrels that way, Ray?
We've fried them. I've never used the pressure cooker routine. I do quite a bit of squirrel hunting down below. They have a tendency to be a little tough. That's an interesting theory, is to cook them in the pressure cooker. I suppose you can still make some gravy from that? But
You bet.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what we're doing. We're talking about squirrel hunting and squirrel recipes. We have quite a crew lined up here. We have Ray Hayton from Mesik. One of our guides, Bud Hamilton, is the man who really owns the star of the show. We're going to get out in a minute here. Ray Underwood from the Boating Industries Association down around Milford. Bob Garner and Beth Garner. This is your second squirrel hunt?
Yep, I love it.
And Dave Weaver, fellow who's with the DNR Fisheries Division. But you spend a lot of time hunting, don't you, Dave?
I spend as much as I can.
Okay, but the star of the show you haven't seen yet. Why don't we get him out? This is Henry. Not Henry Fonda, but Henry, Bud's dog. This is a treeing walker. Come on, Henry. And we've been out on a squirrel hunt this morning, and we got a couple squirrels here, and Henry was the fellow who did it. Take a look at the camera there, Henry. You're on television. This is, you know that? Look, Henry, over here. Tell you what, this is Thursday night. Time for Michigan Outdoors.
From the rugged shore and woodlands of the north, its history of copper mines and iron ore, the Great Lakes fisheries. To the farmlands of the southern counties, we'll look around again at all that waits the sportsman in the state of Michigan.
Now, what about Henry? Tell me about Henry. What is Henry to what?
Well, Henry is a treeing walker in its natural form to tree.
yeah, every time I see him, he's on the road.
He is the third generation of our dogs that we've had in the family, and we got another generation coming up of pups, and we're training them now.
Of course, a hunt with dogs, normally with squirrel hunting, if you're hunting squirrels by yourself, you sit and be real quiet. And the team of us wandering through the woods waiting for the dog, you don't have to have that kind of concern.
Boy, Henry.
Describing the hunt. Weaver, describe a squirrel hunt with a dog.
Well, it's an excellent way to hunt squirrels. You just kind of go in the woods like this, and you saunter through the woods, and the dog's out there, and you can have a friendly conversation. And pretty soon the dog goes and trees a squirrel, and you go there and spot the squirrel, and if you're a good shot, you shoot him right out of the tree. Sometimes you miss. When you do, the squirrel runs, then it really gets exciting. And so it's an exciting sport, hunting with a dog. It's much nicer and easier than just going out and sitting and waiting for a squirrel to come by. I much prefer it.
Oh, boy. Up to him.
You know, spotting the squirrel in the tree wasn't easy at all. You know, you think it'd be kind of an easy job. The dog says the squirrel's right up there.
Well, in the sunshine, you can see them a lot better than when it's cloudy and wet. But they are pretty good about hiding. They don't have a, they really don't just stand out like you might think that they would be.
Okay, well, where do you think it is?
Okay, right. right in there, but
tree, you don't
on
see
the other
squirrel
side of the
first
tree, right in
time,
that
you go around again, and pretty soon it's there.
10 feet from the top?
Yeah,
If
about
you
10 feet
rely
down
on
from the top and shoot
sight,
right through
you
the tree.
trap it
Is it a
in
black
and
squirrel or
leave
gray squirrel or
a
what?
lot of
It's
trees
fox
where the
squirrel.
squirrels are.
Did Henry...
I would think it was to be a fox squirrel because most of our fox squirrels here.
Well, you want to take another shot, Bob?
Let me see if I can find him again.
I haven't got him spotted yet. I'm going to go around on the other side of the tree.
Other side? Okay.
There, you hit him. Here he comes.
Here he comes.
There he is.
Here he is, Henry.
Okay.
Get him. Here, right here. Atta boy. Nice big buck. Atta boy. Atta boy. Yeah, there. Okay, don't bite. He's dead. Don't bite.
Hey, don't bite him.
Don't bite him, Henry.
Let go.
When the squirrel comes down out of the tree, the dog pounces on it, but doesn't eat it, or doesn't try to eat it?
Well, I think that's his only enjoyment the dog gets is to
Some contact with the game.
get contact with the game after it comes down. That's his enjoyment. And that's what he hunts for. That's why he hunts.
If you let the dog just go with the squirrel, would it eat the squirrel?
No, the dog wouldn't eat the squirrel. When it's dead, and the dog just leaves it and goes on. And
Just a characteristic of the breed.
yeah,
That's what they like to do.
he isn't hungry. He's hunting for fun. That's his fun.
And we're hunting for hunger.
Tree to tree to beat the band. And then they get on the ground and go and find their motel and lost it.
Now, how many times a year would you hunt this wood?
For, this is
For
probably-
squirrels,
This
right?
is probably the third time we've been in here.
Third time this year.
A lot of things you see in the woods in the fall. We stumbled across a bow hunter who was absolutely thrilled to see us. Right? Right now we are squirrel hunting and having a good time with a lot of camaraderie, and we're bringing a real surprise to a fellow hunter who probably isn't too thrilled to see us here. We have Henry is barking treat here on a tree that's about 15 feet away from this fellow. I bet that was the greatest thing you ever saw, is about 8 hunters coming through the woods with a dog, eh?
Last thing I expected.
Okay, well, you were here just peacefully bow hunting. What is your name?
Rob Baker,
From where?
Royal Oak.
Okay. You seen any deer?
Haven't seen any this morning. Nothing at all.
After we move on through here, you going to stay here and hunt?
Oh yeah.
So
I
you
think if you guys move on, I think they might just come back this way.
Well, that could be. I'm glad to see you aren't too upset at that.
No. The squirrel's in that tree somewhere. I seen him go up there.
Now, some bow hunters do get a tad miffed at the grouse hunters and the squirrel hunters who come through in the fall.
Well, I guess I ain't really. What can I say? You're here.
We're here. That was
John Michigan
unbelievable that the dog treed right next to him.
And he saw the squirrel go up the tree, the tree that the dog was treeing in. He saw it go up, so we knew it was there.
Yeah.
And I don't imagine he was too happy, but he was a real congenial person.
Well, you know, there's a lot of things to see in the woods as we go through the deer scrapes and sign and mushrooms. We found quite a few mushrooms out there.
There's a variety of mushrooms out there. Some of them are edible, and there was a few that certainly shouldn't be eaten, and we saw several of those kind too.
Did you know this guy was such a mushroom buff? I mean, he really knows his stuff.
Well, unfortunately, I guess I should say fortunately, I hunt with Weaver quite a bit, and it always amazes me. I think he can walk 100 feet in the woods and find enough to feed 10 people for the next 10 days. If it isn't mushrooms, it's some sort of little berry, or it's some sort of bulb that he'll start, he'll dig down and pick out, or it's a doggone thing that looks like a pine needle. Guy's a real naturalist. Ewell Gibbons right here.
Do you know what these are, Dave?
I don't know the names of them, but they're an edible mushroom, excepting they get so hard and so fast that you can't cut them with a chisel.
Huh.
And they don't have the flavor of most of your real good fall mushrooms. But
Are these in a condition right here, the sort of rubbery? Or is this the condition that would be edible?
No, I would say
They're
they're
too late?
past. I would say they're past already. You have to get them when they're just almost white. And these are beginning to turn tan and brown now, so these are past.
How would you cook them?
You could chop them up and you could fry them, saute them in butter, or you could chop them up and put them in a soup, or you could put them in a gravy, or anything like that to add a little bit of flavor.
Huh.
They certainly wouldn't be my first choice of a fall mushroom.
They don't. look that great. They look like oysters or something.
Yeah.
Huh.
Left-hand one that branches off from the trunk.
Yeah, that's about 7 feet, and then there's another branch.
I think it's just the branch going away from you.
What did you think about the hunt? You've never hunted them with dogs before.
Well, this is my first experience with dogs, and I'm a dog lover, Fred. As you well know, I have dogs of my own, but this was really an experience. As I guess as they coined the phrase, I could get into this. It doesn't start exactly prior to daylight, and you can have a nice breakfast and come out with a good dog. And when you have one like old Henry here, that's probably one of the top squirrel dogs around, it makes it a very enjoyable experience.
Hey, Ray, Fred, Beth, come here.
Oh, I see him.
There he is,
Yeah.
right up there.
Oh, yeah.
Right up there, out in the open.
Yeah.
Can you come on, OJ, you can get a
Yeah, I
shot
see
of
him now.
Yeah,
Right.
we're looking all over the
isn't that
limbs, and
crazy?
there he is right up in the... Yeah, there he is.
Here it comes. Boom!
Okay. Good shooting, Ray.
Nice.
Good shooting.
What do you mean you need a new scope?
Isn't that fun?
When we find food and squirrel, you can't seem to deplete the population. We can hunt and hunt and hunt in the same area and not deplete the population.
Well, research has shown that starvation is the #1 mortality factor with squirrels late in the winter. When they run out of food.
Most animals, it's that way. If they have food, they multiply. And quite often they over-multiply, and then when the food is just normal, they don't have enough to go on, and the weaker ones die off.
Well, the squirrel's toughest time is in the winter when it's cold. They get up in those nests, and an awful lot of them just die from exposure. You aware of that, Bud?
Yes, I think that the squirrel will migrate with the food.
Gray squirrels especially will migrate, will move with the food.
Some years we have lots of squirrel in our country, and then another year, like last year, we didn't have any. You could go out and hunt all day and maybe get 2 or 3 squirrels. This year is another good year, and we have acorns and food, and we have a good population of squirrels this year.
Of course,
in this area.
One female squirrel, like this fox squirrel right here, can reproduce. She can have 6 or 8 babies. In March, you could have 6 or 8 babies in August. Usually they have at least 2 litters a year. So, you know, a female could produce 16 squirrels, and they are rodents. That's one thing you can see, the teeth on a squirrel. They're rodent, and that's one reason I think why a number of people don't hunt them, because they don't like to eat something that they consider a rodent. But they're good eating.
They are very delicious eating.
Well, Bob, are they delicious?
Well, let's put it this way. I'd eaten squirrel before lots of times. And Beth, it was the first time Beth has ever eaten squirrel. And she tends to think that probably they're better than rabbit and pheasant and a lot of other things. She was kind of dubious about taking that first bite. But after that, we cleaned those 3 squirrels up real fast.
How did you cook them?
Well, we cooked them the way Bud suggested. That was browning them first. Actually, Dave Weaver cooked them. And then put them in the pressure cooker for about 30 minutes with a gravy and potatoes. And, geez, Ed, there isn't anything better for eating. I wish the heck we'd have had been able to have the tape of the recipe this week. It would have been interesting.
Maybe in the weeks ahead. We'll see what we can do.
I hope so.
How long were you out in the woods, and where were you?
Well, we were right on the Manistee-Wexford County line over in western Michigan, and we were out probably just about 2 hours, but with everybody wanting to see the squirrel and looking at the squirrel and having a good time, we did not make a real fast hunt out of it. It was a couple hours of just, as my wife says, moseying around the woods and listening to Henry bark. It was great.
It looked like a lot of fun.
It was super.
Well, we should say that Fred's up in the UP tonight. He was up last night doing a deer hunter's workshop in Marquette. And before he left, though, he did one of our favorite segments. He did a Michigan Outdoors Trophy Report.
October is a great month for fishing if you can tear yourself away from the squirrel hunting and deer hunting and other outdoor activities that are available. But Harold Zeros did. He's from Port Huron, and he was not enjoying the fall color when he caught this walleye. 10.5 pounds of delicious eating hit the lure he was casting in the middle of the night, 1:30 a.m. to be exact, in the St. Clair River, pitch dark, October 13th. I don't imagine there were too many anglers on the river at that time, but you can see why Harold was there, and probably he'll be fishing in November, too. On October 8th, Harold Beeman from Romulus was salmon fishing on the Huron River when he caught this 17-pounder. But it's not a salmon, a huge channel catfish, 32 inches long. It took a spawn bag that Harold was using to entice a big salmon from a bridge at Flat Rock. You can bet that this channel cat put up a good fight. And although they aren't quite as pretty until you get used to them, catfish are almost as good eating as walleye in my book. Another October 8th fish was this one caught at 10 in the morning in Lake St. Clair. It's a 27.5-pound Great Lakes muskie, which Gerald Furton of St. Clair Shores took on an 8-inch frog-colored believer, trolling. 47 inches long, muskie this size are out there right now, and they're easier to catch than you'd think. You know, I've told you before that we'll get some dandy master angler bass in October, and we have several already. Edward Dyer from Wyoming caught this on October 1st. It weighed in at 6 pounds, 4 ounces, 23 inches long, taken on a crawfish-patterned wigglewort at 7:30 in the morning. It's just after daylight. That was on Bills Lake in Newaygo County. This was the first master angler bass that we saw in 1983 in October. And here's the second October master angler bass caught by Larry Miller, a 6-pound, 2-ouncer. It was attracted to a Rapala, which Larry Miller from Flint was casting at 5:30 in the evening in Metamora Lake, Lapeer County. 24 inches in length, a largemouth like this is not that unusual for October. This bass is the biggest we've heard of so far this month, though, weighing in at 6 pounds, 7 ounces. A leadhead jig, which is a favorite summer lure for largemouths, did the trick for Fred Tingley of Cement City. Columbia Lake in Jackson County produced this 21-incher. You know, frankly, bass like this can be caught in many lakes around the state in October and in November, and we'll be showing you our November trophy reports, which contain fish like this. But for catching the largest October bass reported so far, let's make Fred Tingley our Michigan Outdoors Master Angler of the Week.
Boy, those are some great fish there in the trophy report. Apparently, I'm going to have to put down my gun for one day this weekend and go out bass fishing. Those are really great. Well, this week on the Outdoor Headlines, we've got also some pretty great news. The lawsuit between MUCC, well, that MUCC had filed against Michigan Outdoors, and Michigan Outdoors has been settled. That's good news to the outdoor community, and even better news, Michigan Outdoors will be able to stay on the air for years to come. Quite a surprise in the outdoor news this week. Hillary Snell, longtime member of the Natural Resources Commission, resigned, calling potential conflicts and interest with his newly merged law firm as the reason for resigning. Apparently, some of the issues that Hillary would have to deal with, at least tangentially, would be brought up before the Natural Resources Commission, and he didn't want that conflict of interest to affect the commission, so therefore he did resign. Now, some very important news here for put-take hunters. If you hunt put-take and you want to see the program continued, you have to get before the Natural Resources Commission next Thursday afternoon at their meeting in Lansing at the Law Building and tell the Natural Resources Commission how you feel. This is absolutely critical. If you want more information about this meeting or what to say or who to write, be sure and call or write me, Bob Garner, here at Michigan Outdoors. And some other important news this week in the Outdoor Headlines. Governor Blanchard has called on the Congress to end a pilot project on winter navigation, calling it a billion-dollar boondoggle. The governor has said the potential environmental impacts are so great that there's no way we should be fooling around with Mother Nature, so to speak, and trying to keep those shipping lanes open all winter. That's good news for sportsmen, although you may not know the direct link, because those wetlands and water levels on the lakes greatly affect production of fish and waterfowl in those areas. So it'll be real important to sportsmen in years to come, and I hope, personally, this is my own opinion, that winter navigation year-round doesn't come to the Great Lakes. And that's what's happening this week in the Outdoor Headlines.
The Snell opening, the new opening on the NRC, Bob. Any names floating around? I know it just happened on Monday. Are there any names floating around?
Well, there's still names floating around from the last round of commission appointments the governor made, but I don't really have any to give you. One thing I do want to say, though, Ed, I do want to stress this, is there's been some speculation in the press that the reason Snell quit is because of differences with the governor. I don't believe that for 1 second. In fact, even though Snell is a Republican Milliken appointee to the commission,
right.
I thought that he was getting along with Governor Blanchard very, very well. In fact, I would have even bet that when his appointment came up, that he would have again be seated, or would have got the gubernatorial appointment to stay on the commission for a Republican. So I thought they got along together pretty well.
And the appointment, the governor's going to make that appointment?
December.
In December?
It looks like December. I don't think he'll move before December at all. His office doesn't seem to think so either.
Okay. I have some questions here from the mailbag. Are you ready?
Oh, those are always great.
With some answers? Okay. We got this one by telephone. Early in October, I got a buck with my bow. DNR regulations say I can hunt with my bow during the gun deer season if I buy a gun deer license. Can I continue hunting with my bow for a second buck on my gun deer license during the muzzle loading season, which is December 2nd through the 11th?
No, he cannot continue hunting with a bow and arrow under a gun deer license during that muzzle loading season. It's kind of complex, Ed, but the law, it's not a DNR regulation, by the way, it's the law says you can only hunt with a muzzle loading rifle if I believe it's 44 caliber or larger. There's some things he can do with deer for camp permits, with some of his buddies who propose to camp together, and that might be one way he can hunt with bow and arrow during that December 2nd to the 11th period.
Okay. Here we've got a question from Grand Rapids. On your October 20th show, you interviewed a fellow who legally caught a Chinook salmon that had been previously illegally snagged. He even stated that there was a lure dangling from the fish's side when he landed it. I thought it was illegal to keep a foul-hooked salmon. Shouldn't he have returned it to the water?
If that angler had foul-hooked that salmon, say, he caught it on a wobble globe, by the way, in the mouth, legally caught.
And we were there.
Right, we were there. And if he had caught that salmon and foul-hooked it, and then landed it, yes, he would have had to return it to the water. But since somebody else had previously foul-hooked it, he caught it legally, he was able to keep it. Now, Ed, that happens quite a bit up in that, up in the Pere Marquette area, for example. Just one example. At Scottville there was snagging, which, by the way, ended last week. But there's some snagging in the upper reaches. Fly fishermen especially will catch fish that do have snag marks on them. They are able to keep those fish if they legally caught them in the mouth.
All right. And our last one here is from Fairhaven. I saw a sporting goods store in the Detroit area that displayed large racks of Hunter Orange pants with a sign that said, Hunter Orange pants, you will be required by law to wear them this deer season. Buy them now. Is this a new law?
No, it's a sales ploy. Absolutely not. The law says, the law has nothing, says nothing about Hunter's Orange pants at all. What the law says is you must wear a cap or hat, a jacket or vest or coat. You know, it's something on the upper part of your body that's Hunter Orange.
Right.
And a hat will suffice or a coat or vest will suffice. But if you went into the woods wearing on lands open to the public, wearing just Hunter Orange pants, you would not meet the requirements of the law. Get it up on that upper body.
But of course you would say, hey, wear all the orange you can, right?
Wear all the orange you can, although, because it's just one of those good sense safety factors, that's all.
All right, thank you. That was the mailbag. To find out what's happening in the weeks ahead, we'll take a look at the Michigan Outdoors Outdoor Calendar. The Ruffed Grouse Society is holding its 3rd annual Sportsman's Banquet tomorrow evening in Midland. If you'd like more information on this or any event on our calendar, call Bill Swagler at the Michigan Travel Bureau, and Bill will give you the local phone number of the club or organization sponsoring the event. You can call him weekdays toll-free at 1-800-292-2520. There's a trap shoot on Sunday in Jackson at the Jackson County Sportsman's Club. Wednesday, November 2nd is the date of Plaid Shirt Night at the K-Peck High School, and that starts at 7:30 p.m. Our Deer Hunters workshops are in progress, with the next one Tuesday, November 1st at the Grace A. Dow Library Auditorium in Midland. Glenn Dutterer and Fred will take you through the world of whitetail deer hunting, how to properly field dress your deer for food and trophy, how to use knowledge of deer behavior to increase your chances. Commemorative Bucks of Michigan will be on hand to measure racks, and if you bring in the largest rack measured, not previously measured, you'll receive one of our limited edition wildlife art prints. Deer Hunter workshops in November are Monday, November 7th at the Kenton Beltline Skill Center Auditorium in Grand Rapids, Tuesday, November 8th at the Elba Community Building in Flint, Wednesday, November 9th at the Fowlerville High School just south of Lansing, Last week we announced dates for Mount Pleasant and Dearborn, but those dates have been canceled and we're trying to reschedule them. And that's the Michigan Outdoors Outdoor Calendar.
Well, Fred told me that this week on his flight up to Marquette, the leaf covering in the northern half of the state, well, it was just about at peak. Sometimes he found it to be just a little beyond peak color, but he did tell me up in the UP, there's only about 30% of leaf cover remaining all over the Upper Peninsula. Now, the Bay de Nox over in this area, surprisingly, fishermen are doing quite well. They're getting good amounts of walleye, lake trout, perch, and some bass right in these the Big Bay de Nox and Little Bay de Nox areas. Over in the Lachino Islands, they're doing very well on perch and walleyes. Especially perch are really hitting very well down in Lake Erie, northern part of Lake Erie, and in Lake St. Clair. Now, most of the fishing information this weekend is really overshadowed by hunting, and hunting seems to be just tremendous in the northern half of the Lower Peninsula for archery deer hunters. I talked to Tom Prodzik the other day. He says maybe they're being a little less choosy because they are seeing fewer deer in the northern part of the Lower Peninsula. In the southern half of the Lower Peninsula, a lot of big bucks have been coming in over the past 2 weeks. Big rack bucks, big bodied bucks. I want a special reminder too, the silhouette shoot that was planned for Saturday at the Looking Glass Sportsman's Club, that has been canceled. We are trying to find another date for that Michigan Outdoors Celebrity Silhouette shoot. Now, rabbits, talked to several DNR people who are absolutely amazed, and hunters too, over the number of rabbits around southern Michigan. Last year was not such a great year for rabbits, but they're doing extremely well this year. You pheasant hunters, special reminder, a lot of birds are going to be put out on state game and rec areas for this weekend. If you want to hunt pheasants and have reasonable success in hunting pheasants, hunt any of the state game areas in southern Lower Michigan. We're going to be grouse hunting on Monday. Going to be also doing a little bit of squirrel hunting this weekend. So we hope you get outside, take the family with you outdoors. It's a great place to be. But join us next week here on Michigan Outdoors.
Come on, OJ, you can get a
I see him now.
Yeah, right. We're looking all over the limbs, and there he is right up in the...
Yeah, there he is.
Here it comes. Boom.
Okay.
Good shooting, Ray.
Nice.
Good shooting.
Take all the squirrels with you. They make too much noise.
Send a few of them down our way, will you?
Rugged shore and woodlands of the north is history. Of copper mines and iron ore, the Great Lakes fishery. To the farmlands of the southern counties we'll look around again, and all that waits the sportsman in the state of Michigan. And sometimes when the moon brings out the diamonds in the snow, and the stillness of the forest lies encased in Arctic cold, the wind might whisper through the trees, listen if you can, it tells you of the beauty in this state of Michigan.
Production of Michigan Outdoors is made possible in part by the Stroh Brewery Company, a family-owned brewery, and its distributors throughout Michigan.